that connect them. And so this time I'm going to draw them at a further distance. And I'm going to draw these arrows now going outward from my soul and from my spirit. Instead of pressing in like your shoe pressing the gum against it when it steps. Now we have the ability to actually establish some separation and division. And that's because now in between the soul and the spirit is an open gateway. Gateway. Open. Okay. So if I want to have a conversation with somebody outside, I open the door and talk with them. The benefit of a gateway is a greater degree of separation. Distance. So the distance between my soul and my spirit increases. That's a good thing. Let's write that down. The distance between, that's this distance here. The distance between my soul and spirit increases. What does that allow for? That allows for freedom to move back and forth. Okay, so I'll write the gateway. Gateway allows for freedom to move back and forth freely. And put another star right here. Information can be passed back and forth. Can be passed back and forth between spirit and soul. Okay, which one is really desperately needing the information?
The soul.
The soul really desperately needs the information from the spirit. So your being, especially in lap 1 as we operate, is as much as we have this incredible power source available to us, omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, that's our spirit. But because our spirit's kind of like the gum on the bottom of our shoe, we don't even know it's there. It's just hard pressed. Okay. So one thing that this does say is that, read 5:17 one more time.
For the flesh sets its desire against the spirit, and the spirit against the flesh. For these are in opposition to one another, so that you may not do the things that you please.
Okay, so when you have contradiction, right? Are people more likely to make good decisions when there's contradiction, or are people more likely to make good decisions when there's flow of information?
Flow of information.
Flow of information. When there's contradiction, you are less likely, you shut down. You don't want to do something because there's conflict. It's almost, it'd be better if you were just almost evil, where you didn't have the oppression, you didn't have the conflict, and you could just go out and make money and do all the things that the world does because you didn't have the conflict, right? But once you become born from above, your spirit now is active. We're going to go to the born again verses here in a second because I think we can get something from those. So what's happened now is that information can be passed back and forth. The spirit and the soul can go back and forth through this gateway. There's a freedom that your spirit now has. So what I was going to say, it's not just your soul and your flesh that's pressing against the spirit. Your spirit also is, according to this verse, is also pressing against the other side. So it's not like it's all a total loss. Your spirit has some force. So just remember that movie Flubber with Fred McMurray? Did you watch that? It was the
I saw it when I was a kid, but I really don't remember.
Okay, so we were talking about the gum on the shoe. Well, in this movie with Fred McMurray, the guys were playing basketball. This movie's old. This is like from the 50s. But they put the flubber on the bottom of the shoe. Remember that? And they were able to jump super high, like ridiculously high. So it was like now the gum on the bottom of the shoe became super activated and helpful. Oh, okay, so we do have a little bit of that going on, because the spirit is warring against the flesh, according to this verse. So we do have some power coming from the other side. Now, instead of diminishing that, so if my spirit is pushing a little bit, like the flubber from that movie, the contradiction diminishes the power of my spirit, right? Because they're moving in the wrong direction, right? So it'd be like if I had a stack of money to pay some bills, and then I started shredding some of it and burning some of it, right? It's going to diminish my pile of cash. If someone comes in, don't burn that. You need that to pay your bills, okay? So with the opening of a gateway between our soul and our spirit, all of that goes away. Now we're under the law of the spirit that we read about. It says read verse 18.
But if you are led by the Spirit, you are not under the law.
Okay, so we are still under a law, but we come out from underneath the natural laws that govern man on the surface of the earth, and we are at a higher level and governed by a spiritual law. So it's not like we don't have laws. We have laws that we enter into a higher realm, and we're governed by the Spirit. So this gateway now is key to getting rid of the contradiction, to getting rid of the being a slave to the to-do list where you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm doing this and I need to stop. Or I'm not doing enough of this and I need to start. And that's your whole life, where you're just thinking to myself, I need to do this or I need to stop doing that. You're not going to win that war. If we could win that war, what would be the incentive to move into lap 2, to divide soul and spirit? If I could win my contradictory war, given enough of my own soulish effort, then I would win eventually, and I would have no purpose of coming out of that. So the whole idea is, let's go to the coming out. We'll have a coming out party. Let's go to the coming out verse here, and I did write that down. Okay. That's in Revelation. Revelation 18:4. Go ahead.
I heard another voice from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people, so that you will not participate in her sins and receive of her plagues."
Okay, so this is referring to the hot group coming out of the whole system of the lukewarm group. So Revelation 17 and 18, if you could just memorize this, Revelation 17 and 18 refers to the whore. That's the lukewarm group. So in Revelation 17, it's talking about the whore and where she sits. She's scattered among the nations. And then in Revelation chapter 18, it talks about Mystery Babylon. Mystery Babylon and the whore are the same group of people. It's the lukewarm. It's just in Revelation 18, she's at the edge and falls over the edge, right? The Babylon the Great is fallen. Why does she fall? Because she was basically impregnated with the seed of the kingdom of God on the inside of her, being in covenant with God. So that, just like being born again, that elevates you. But at some point, the lukewarm fall off this cliff. They have to fall from somewhere, and that that degree by which they fall has to do with where they were initially at with God, in a raised position. Okay, so what we're doing now is we're coming out of this system of the lukewarm have two overriding characteristics. So let's talk about the dual nature of group 1 and group 2. Today is kind of the serendipity of things. Nature of group 1 and 2. So, on our roadmap from the hot group is to become kings and priests, right? Hot group roadmap. As spirit beings, we will operate in a dual fashion. Remember, God has a dual nature, so do we. The more we operate in lap 2 as spirit beings, the more we pay attention to a dual nature, the more we have a dual focus, and the more that identity and the corresponding roles come out of us. So what are those roles? The hot group's roadmap. So dual roles. Kings and priests. Okay, so the kings are associated with governance. I receive an inheritance. I receive the inheritance of the Gentiles that remain and survive into the next era. Right, and I will govern the earth. Okay, what do the priests do? What do they engage? What role do they do? I wouldn't overthink this. What do I usually talk about associating with two roles, governance and what?
Reproduction.
Yeah. So priests are involved with reproduction. So when I got born again, right, let's say somebody helped lead me into a relationship with God. Was I being governed at that point?
No. No,
I was being reproduced. Born, right? Born, that's reproduction. So priests, kings will be involved with governance, and priests are are involved with reproduction. God is reproducing himself in us as spirit beings, right? So that's what the priest's role is, a type of reproduction. It's a bit of a simplification of that, but that's what we do. So where am I going with that? So the lukewarm group, I had a direction for this. So the lukewarm group is going to emulate this dual nature, right? So the lukewarm group, let's write about, this is where I was going with this. The lukewarm group, they still have the seed of the kingdom of God on the inside of them until they fall. Okay, so they're going to operate in a dual nature as well. Now, this dual nature now takes on a distorted way about it. Two ways, right? A distortion. So the lukewarm group are going to have a tendency to be either very worldly, what does that mean? What does the world want to do? They want to reproduce, right? Isn't that obvious? So, in the lukewarm group, I'll want to behave like a Gentile. And I'll want to be involved with reproduction of the American dream, right? Reproduction.
And trading with the Gentiles.
Yeah, reproduction and trading. Trading is for the purpose of becoming one. Becoming one, is that governance or reproduction?
Reproduction.
It's reproduction, right? The Bible talks about if you're like just even natural marriage between a physical man and a physical woman, the two shall become one flesh, right? So